Okay, welcome to a problem in which we are solving an inequality, graphing the solution on the number line, and giving the interval notation answer. Okay, so here's our inequality. So let me bring it down. Let me just bring it over here for us. Minus 9x minus 7 less than 20. Okay, so let me again call your attention to the exam 1 notes. Here they are. Exam 1 notes, which are at the top of the Unit 1 module in our Canvas course shell. So I'm showing how to solve this exact problem. And notice here's the key part. When we multiply or divide by a negative, we must flip the symbol. That's the trick. See how the symbol gets flipped right there? So that's what we got to pay attention to. So let's do it. So the first step. So here's the let me put in the wall of separation here. Okay. So we want to add 7 to both sides because we're wanting to get the x alone. There's that. Bring this down. And then last step. Divide by the negative, but notice right there I'm dividing by a negative. So again, when you multiply or divide, let me write that a little better, when you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip the symbol. So I'm going to cross this out and turn it the other way. It's greater now. So this cancels. We got x, and what is 27 divided by negative 9? It is negative 3. So x is greater than negative 3. So x is greater than negative 3 is our answer. Now how do we put that on the number line? Well, we go to the number line, we go negative 3 with a parenthesis or a solid dot. It's the same thing. So I'm going to put it's going to be a hollow dot. A hollow dot at negative 3, and we shade to the right. Does that make sense? Now, why a hollow dot? If you have x greater than negative 3, let me put it right here. So it was very well done. If you have x greater than negative 3, then at negative 3 you have a hollow dot and you shade to the right because x is greater, x is to the right. Whereas, come down here, if they gave us, let's do another number line here, if they gave us x, or let's continue with greater than or equal to negative 3, then in that case we would put a solid dot at negative 3 and shade to the right because x would be to the right. Does that make sense? So when you have the equals bar, so that's a hollow dot. So, and this is got a solid dot. So if you have greater than or equal or less than or equal, you put a solid dot. If you put greater or less, you put an open dot. Why is that? Because the equals includes the number, right? If you're saying x is greater than or equal to negative 3, then it can be right on negative 3, so you want a solid dot there. Whereas if you're just saying that x is over here greater than negative 3, then it can't be equal. It's only greater. So it's only to the right. It's not straight on the spot, so you put a hollow dot there. It's like you've drilled out that spot. Open dot. Now we also, and then the interval notation, and we use parenthesis, and down here we use brackets. So I want to give you those two pieces of information. So, so when I give the interval notation answer for this one, it's going to be parenthesis negative 3 to infinity. Why? What is interval notation? Interval notation is left edge, the shading shading left edge and the shading right edge. Meaning, for this chunk of shading, the left edge is -3. The right edge is that arrow, right forever, which is infinity. That's the right edge of the shading. So when you give interval notation, which is right here, which is what they want, interval notation, let me write it up here, interval notation is always left edge, right edge of the piece of shading. Here's the piece of shading right here on the number line. The left edge is -3 of that piece of shading. The right edge is infinity because it goes right forever. And you use parentheses to say you're not including the -3. See the parenthesis right here at the -3? If the question had been this one, let me change the color for clarity here. If the question had been this, then I would have done bracket -3 to infinity with the parenthesis. Whoops. So why? Because if you have a solid dot, you use brackets. Why? Because you're saying you're straight on the -3. If they had said x is greater than or equal to -3, then you can be right on the -3. So you want a solid bracket because the bracket is straight. The edge is straight. You're straight on that number. But ours was not that. Ours was greater than -3, not equal. Right? Greater than -3 means you're not right on -3. So you have an open dot and you have a parenthesis in the interval notation, open dot on the graph, parenthesis, because you're not straight on. It's rounded. It's not straight on the -3. So there we go. That's how to do that.